The little girl stood at the window every evening, her tiny fingers gripping the iron bars as her hopeful eyes searched the road. The sun slowly faded behind the dusty houses, shadows stretched across the street, and still she waited. Then she turned toward the tired man sitting quietly on the broken sofa and asked the question that pierced his heart every single day, "Dad, when will Mom come back?" Her father lowered his eyes, hiding the storm of pain inside them. He wanted to answer, but the truth felt heavier than words. The silence between them carried a sorrow deeper than tears. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the silent strength of a parent's love, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Lonely Dad's Strong Heart. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them. The man's name was Armin. Once, his home had been full of laughter. Once, the walls of that small house had echoed with music, playful arguments, and dreams about the future. His wife, Sana, had been the warmth of that home, the gentle voice that filled every empty corner with life. And their daughter, little Asa, had been the light that made everything meaningful. But life has a strange way of rewriting stories. 3 years earlier, a quiet tragedy had entered their lives without warning. Sana had fallen seriously ill. At first it seemed like a minor sickness, something that medicine and rest would fix. But the days turned into hospital visits, the hospital visits turned into months of treatments, and slowly the hopeful smiles of doctors began to fade into quiet concern. Armin sold everything he could to pay for her treatment. He sold his motorcycle, his savings, even the small jewelry Sana had once cherished. He worked double shifts at a warehouse, lifting heavy boxes until his back burned with pain. Every night he returned home exhausted, but he still forced himself to smile for Asa and sit beside Sana's hospital bed with hope in his eyes. He promised her everything would be okay. But sometimes love is not strong enough to fight fate. One cold morning, the hospital corridor was unusually silent. The doctors spoke softly, the nurses avoided eye contact, and Armin felt a strange heaviness in his chest before anyone even said a word. When the doctor finally approached him with sorrow in his voice, Armin felt the world collapse around him. Sana was gone. The hospital room suddenly felt empty, as if the air itself had disappeared. Armin stood there frozen, unable to cry, unable to breathe. It felt impossible that someone who had filled his life with so much warmth could vanish so suddenly. But the hardest moment was still waiting for him at home. When he returned that evening, little Asa ran toward him with innocent excitement. Her tiny arms wrapped around his legs, and her bright eyes sparkled with hope. She asked him where her mother was. Armin felt his throat tighten. He wanted to tell her the truth, but how do you explain death to a 5-year-old child whose world still believes in miracles? So he whispered something simple, something easier. He told her that Mom had gone away for a while. That lie became the quiet wound he carried every day. Life after that became a battlefield of silent struggles. Armin had to become everything at once: father, mother, protector, teacher. Every morning he woke before sunrise, preparing breakfast for Asa while still half asleep. He braided her hair with clumsy fingers, often making a mess that made her giggle softly. Then he walked her to school before rushing to work. His job at the warehouse was exhausting. Long hours, heavy loads, strict supervisors, and very little pay. But Armin never complained. Every box he lifted felt like a step toward securing Asa's future. Still, the loneliness followed him everywhere. At night, when Asa finally fell asleep, Armin often sat quietly beside the window. The house felt too silent without Sana's laughter. Sometimes he held her old scarf and closed his eyes, remembering the days when life felt simple. But the hardest part was Asa's question. Every few days she would ask again, with the same innocent hope. When will Mom come back? Each time, Armin felt his heart crack a little more. He would gently hug her and say, soon. But inside, he felt the weight of guilt crushing him. He knew he could not hide the truth forever. Time passed slowly, like a long winter that refused to end. Then one evening something unexpected happened. Asa came home from school unusually quiet. Normally she would run inside excitedly, telling Armin about her day, but that day she sat silently at the dining table. Her small eyes looked thoughtful, almost sad. Armin asked what was wrong. After a long pause, Asa softly explained that her teacher had asked the class to draw their families. All the children had drawn both their parents standing together. Some had even drawn family trips and happy moments. But Asa had only drawn herself and her father. And when the teacher gently asked where her mother was, Asa didn't know what to say. The drawing still lay on the table, two small stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun. Armin looked at that drawing and felt tears fill his eyes for the first time in years. That night, after Asa fell asleep, he sat alone holding the paper. It was such a simple drawing, but it carried the entire weight of their life. For the first time, Armin realized something important. He could not keep hiding the truth from his daughter. Children are stronger than we think. The next evening, as the sun painted the sky orange, Asa again stood by the window waiting for her mother. Armin walked slowly toward her. His heart pounded in his chest. He knelt beside her and gently held her tiny hands. For a long moment he simply looked into her eyes, eyes that were so much like Santa's. Then, with a trembling voice, he told her the truth. He told her that her mother loved her more than anything in the world. He explained that sometimes people don't come back, not because they don't want to, but because life takes them somewhere far beyond our reach. Asa listened quietly. At first she didn't fully understand. Then slowly, the meaning of his words settled in her heart. Her eyes filled with tears. But instead of asking more questions, she wrapped her arms around her father and held him tightly. That night they cried together. For the first time, the silence between them broke. Days turned into months again, but something had changed. Asa stopped waiting at the window every evening. Instead, she began sitting beside Armin while he cooked dinner, helping him with small things and telling him about school. The sadness didn't disappear, but it transformed into a quiet strength between them. Armin also began to heal. He started smiling more often. Not the forced smile he used before, but a genuine one that slowly returned to his face whenever Asa laughed. Their house was still small and simple, but it no longer felt empty. Love filled the spaces that grief once occupied. Years later, when Asa grew older, she would often tell people how her father became her hero. She would say that while other children had two parents, she had one who loved her twice as much. And every time Armin heard those words, he felt something warm inside his heart, a feeling that reminded him that even the deepest pain can grow into something beautiful. Because sometimes life breaks us, but love quietly puts the pieces back together. Before we end this story, I want to ask you something special. Please write in the comments. Respect for every single parent. Your words may encourage someone who is silently fighting the same battle. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Lonely Dad Strong Heart. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people around the world. And remember, somewhere tonight, a parent is sitting quietly after a long day, exhausted but still strong, doing everything they can for the small heart that depends on them. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes, they're just called Dad, crying.